Hello, wrestling friends. I'm Matt Coon, and today on Matt Watch, we are watching NXT, and I'm watching it with an open mind because I don't really have a closed mind with NXT because I go back with NXT from watching it on Hulu to watching on the network to going to so many of their events. The NXT San Jose, which was their first big event, which was their proof of concept that they could actually run big events, to the first three takeovers in Brooklyn, to NXT in Dallas. Just I love it. I loved NXT. And then what happened is that they lost to AEW. They went up against AEW and they lost to AEW, and they just demolished the place and rebuilt it in a fever dream that could only come out of Prince's head. The multicolored NXT 2.0, that aberration, the abomination, just awful stuff. By the way, I know I have to address it. The facial hair, I shaved my face, and it's horrifying, and I'm very sorry. It will grow back, and I will be more palatable to look at. Right now, it's so round. It's a round, fat head, and I'm not happy with it. But the less said about it, the better. But I didn't want to ignore it. Like my God. So anyway, NXT now is kind of new. I hear it all the time. Saw it on Twitter today. NXT is the best wrestling show on television. Someone said you should really give it a chance. Someone said other people thought I'd be close-minded. So I gave it a watch, and let's talk about the show real quick. So they recapped last week's big show with Cena and The Undertaker, and none of those people are here this week. I wonder why. That thought of NXT was loading up the show to win. Of course they were. AW was loading up the show to win. Of course they were. If you're NXT and you figure and you find out, hey, AEW's coming to Tuesday, you're not trying to lose in your slot. And if you're AEW and you feel maybe slighted or disrespected by WWE, and you go to their slot and you see them loading up with people, you're going to feel disrespected too, and you're going to win too. I mean, so you know, we had that last week. So it is about the fact that NXT is part of a package or a standalone, that they're selling the show for a new network deal for sure. But that's why Becky Lynch was on. That's why Dominic was on. That's not why Cena and Undertaker were on. Cena and Undertaker were on and Cody and LA Knight were on because AEW was on Tuesdays. Don't get it twisted. That's what happened. And also, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? So, the show starts with and then I'm going to give you some overall thoughts after the show. So, I'm going to run down the show really quickly. 20-man battle royal. The it was kind of a mess. Some of the wrestlers I knew, some I didn't, but I do know Chase University, who won, and they beat Umberto and Angel Garza. It is kind of like it was before, where they have some people who may not have been hitting hard on the main roster, who might need a fresh coat of paint down in developmental, such as Angel and Umberto. But there, you also have some people that I don't know why they're down there, but and I'm not sure they're doing much with Umberto and Angel, who are two guys they could do a lot with if maybe they could resist the temptation to just focus on their ethnicity for a gimmick, which is what they've done in the past. So in any case, Chase U wins. The Creed brothers were heavily involved in that one. They're setting up something with that, but it ends with Chase U going on to challenge the tag champs at Halloween Havoc. And apparently the tag champs are these Italian fellas. And if you didn't know they were Italian, they talk like this. Like, I'm not being insulting. I'm telling you what they talk like. They literally are eating spaghetti during the match because they're stereotypes, right? Italian stereotypes. Okay, cool. So, it's one of the things with NXT where I guess they have to have a really wide, I don't know, an outlandish, big concept for these gimmicks, and then they can dial them back and focus on them or change them when they go to WWE. It does seem super duper over the top. Um, so then we have Blair Davenport challenges Gigi Dolan to a match at Halloween Havoc. Lexis King, the former Brian Pillman Jr., is the focus of another vignette. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about later how one thing I don't like about NXT is that it is not different anymore. It is just a lesser version of WWE. It is like WWE Lite. The wrestlers aren't quite as good. The gimmicks are a little bit too silly. The promos aren't quite as good. Some of these wrestlers you might never see on TV, but everything's just not quite as good. You know, it's WWE Lite. It's a lesser version of exactly the same thing. I guess I'm talking about it now. The production, everything, all those differentiations they used to have to make NXT look and sound and feel different. The specialness of Full Sail, it's gone. They made like a mini stadium with camera cuts and zooms like they have on WETV, which you can't really blame because they are developing production people too. But if I'm watching 5 hours of WETV a week, and I'm not, but maybe I am now for Matt Watch, um, and I want another wrestling program in my life, I don't need 2 more hours of WWE and then a lesser version of it. And I think that's what we get with a lot of this. So I say all this to talk about the former Brian Pillman's promo because this was the best part of WWE. This is what WWE does really well, you know. And as far as developmental goes, and whatever the team did or whatever Brian did to decide what they would do with him, it's really working. It looks fantastic, and I'm excited to see him wrestle. Brian and I go back a long way before he was, you know, signed, and you know, there was a time where I had more pull than him. Like he had to call me to see if I could help him get a hookup with something, and you know, as far as a convention. And I remember Brian, the first time I met him, it was after I interviewed him. He was at a WrestleCon, but he didn't have a table. So this dude has come a long way, and this is where he needs to be. And I know some people don't like Brian for whatever reason. I'm rooting for him 100%. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. He was always great with Matthew, and to watch him come from where he's come from to where he's going, it's awesome to see, and I'm super happy. I wish nothing for the best for Alexis King, and these promos seem the right way to do it. I wouldn't have thought, wouldn't have thought. Let's change his name, and then let's make him resentful of his father's name. You know, okay, that's the story, and then he's going to be a bigger name than his father ever was. Okay, that's a great little angle. Brian has an X factor to him. If you meet him, if you know him, he does have it. I don't think it came across in AEW TV. I don't think that's to blame. Brian's to blame for that. I don't think AEW's not to blame for that. It's just the way it was. It wasn't a good fit. Um, so the next thing that happens is that we set up our main event to be a supposed four-way. It's Carmelo Hayes, Baron Corbin, and Dominic Dijak, or just Dijak. Um, Man, this is kind of an interesting mix, right? You got Carmelo Hayes, who appears to be headed to the main roster at some point. He is smaller, but if they don't present him as smaller, he is someone who could break out of that mold and just be a guy that just happens to be maybe a little smaller, like Adam Cole, right? Um, I'm not sure they're going to know what to do with him on the main roster, but but from him getting the rub, as they say, from Undertaker and even John Cena, um, it seems like he's heading on his way there. Baron Corbin, perpetually miscast. He's funny, he's interesting, he's engaging. He's always wearing bad outfits and he's always in bad characters. For me, I think I would like to see babyface Baron Corbin. I would like to see Baron Corbin doing his best to beat bad guys and then having that edge of a bad guy, but being the person that he appears to be. And Dijak and him and Carmelo had a little thing in the ring. It was fine. Trick Williams comes out. Trick Williams definitely has a star quality to him. And this is a betrayal for Hayes. Hayes, and Trick apparently have a friendship, and this friendship was compromised by Trick Williams's justified ambition. So this is a storyline that I think is working. So as far as storylines go, we'll talk about it. Just because you have storylines doesn't mean they're good storylines. Most of the storylines that I saw, as if you treat me as a first-time viewer, they were lacking, quite honestly. Like they're going for it and they're like being creative. But this Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes thing seems to be working. It's subtle, and they set up the match, um, and so then we have one of many women's matches, and a couple for the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament. Have nothing against women's wrestling. I like women's wrestling, and I don't think, man, in a 2-hour show, 4 women's matches, they're to be commended. So we had this is a breakout tournament. So the breakout tournament, I have learned, is where they have stars. They have people making their appearances to break out into the main roster of NXT. It's like a minor league of the minor league. And so I kind of was going back and forth to myself about whether this is a brilliant way or a lazy way to introduce new talent. I settled on lazy, because they're throwing out 16 wrestlers out there instead of really committing, and they're going, okay, let's see what sticks. Let's see what sticks. We'll throw out 16 new wrestlers. We'll see what sticks. We'll see what hits. We'll see what it looks like on screen. Instead of really committing to the details of each, they might be putting out some before they're ready. I guess I'm just not a fan of it. Petrovic wins, and meets Lola Vice, who I do not know who that is. Lyra Valkyrie against Tegan Knox. So the story here is Valkyrie is about to face Becky Lynch at Halloween Havoc, and Tegan Knox is a tune-up match, and it's also to set up a women's tag team championship match with Chelsea Green and Piper Niven, with Natalia being Tegan Knox's partner. I don't think that was set up particularly well, and I don't think this match was particularly great. I'm not here to shit on anybody. I'm not here to say someone's a bad wrestler. I'm not here to say these people aren't ready. I'm not here to say anything except there was miscommunication in this match, and it showed. When you see two people huddled together talking, it's no good. So that happened. Gigi Dolan responds to Davenport's show. Oh, yeah, and Valkyrie won the match. And then they bring out the spin the wheel, make the deal thing, the throwback to the old WCW Jake Roberts Sting deal. But, it's very cartoonish looking. And like everything on there is really just a no DQ match, right? They just have different names. A lights out match, a Carnival of Funhouse match, a no DQ match, a boiler room match. It's just a bunch of ways to have bad hardcore matches without blood, it's like, okay. So with blood, I hate the idea of people self-mutilating. I don't like it. Like, I wish there was a better way. So I'm not saying I'm for that. What I'm saying is, if you're going to have a hardcore match of these types, right, you want to make it look like it's a fight that got amped up, not a fight with props. And a lot of times in WWE, it's like these fights are fights with props. We have Shotzi against Kiana James. Roxana Perez interfered. Not a lot of, Shotzi, of course, is another kind of, I don't know if they're cast-offs, but someone who's been, or I don't know if it's a demotion, but someone who is now on NXT who was on the main roster. It was fine. It didn't do much for me. It wasn't that entertaining. They had a skit with Akira Tozawa, with Lash Legend and Mensa, and they're on the phone with Noam Dar. Lots going on. Now, we have Trick Williams, who is in the four-way match with his friend, is down on the ground selling his knee like he got hurt. Carmelo Hayes is there to check on him. And Carmelo acts super concerned and says he doesn't know who jumped Williams. So here's my theory, because I think it's kind of obvious, right? is Trick Williams is acting. He's in on it. It didn't really happen to him. He made it up, right? That's just what I think. As I say it, I don't know if it makes sense because why would you take yourself out of that match? But maybe there's a larger revenge motive, perhaps. Um, there's an interview of Dominic Mysterio. Mackenzie Mitchell, who is the interviewer, doesn't appear to be much different from many other interviewers that I've seen. I'm sure she's a wonderful person, but I don't. There's nothing different or interesting about her in the background. Not that I don't know why I'm going after her. That's not really fair. But I'm just when you see these interviews, a lot of times you're like, oh, there's another one, and I guess it's not really fair because you can say that about some of the wrestlers too. Dominic and Nathan Frazier, the former Ben Carter, are brawling. They brawl all around. And I just kept thinking, like, first of all, Frazier's like dialed up to 14 on a scale of 1 to 10 at all times. And, it was a good brawl. But the thing that I kept thinking was how much has Dominic Mysterio improved? Like, he keeps getting better and better. It's not at a rapid rate, right? But it is happening. Like, I definitely felt at the very beginning that Dominic was miscast, first of all, and then kind of like thrown in there. Like there wasn't really anything unique about him. There wasn't anything that made him look like, oh, he's special, except he's Ray's son, and Ray is like super talented. So the only kind of reference you have is that you think, well, I guess he's super talented too. And he might be, and he probably is, and he looks to be, but he doesn't seem to be in the same way. And so making him the heel was a great way for him to take a step back wrestling wise and kind of figure out who he is in the ring apart from his dad. And I see a lot of improvement in him that way. So now we have another women's breakout match. We have Ariana Grace and Brinley Reese. Okay, Ariana Grace is like a beauty pageant winner against like like a motivational speaker / personal trainer, I think. And, Ariana Grace, though, there's some about her, I think, out of the women that I saw tonight in these breakout matches, that I think she's going to break out. And I think it was about the facial expressions. I think she just gets it on that level. Like, she seemed, like, at first, you just want to you want to be turned off to a beauty pageant gimmick. You're like, okay, here we go. All right, this is writing, remedial creative writing by WWE. But man, she really kind of sold it in the ring, and then she sold it in the match. And her movements in the match, like her suplex, I don't know why, it was like a vertical suplex. And I was like, hey, that's it looked really crisp and good. Okay, earlier there's a segment I forgot to mention because, it was about a segment that a lot of us saw on Twitter where Braun Breaker supposedly dropped some steps on Von Wagner's head, and now he's rehabbing and he's struggling to hold a sash. And it was not the greatest segment I've ever seen. I saw what they were trying to do with it, but Robert Stone was good in it because you could tell his character had changed a little bit. And then at this point, towards the end of the show, Stone and Breaker are in backstage, and Stone is just angry, and he's so angry that he can't help but threaten to beat up Breaker at Halloween Havoc. And so, first of all, that's pretty cool. I thought Robert Stone was good in this role. I'm glad to see him break out and do some stuff, and I'd like to see him wrestle. And if you've watched the previous shows, you know that I am open about my biases. Earlier, I talked about Brian Pillman Jr. I am definitely open about my bias for him. But I'm not sure there's anybody I'm more biased for than Mr. Robert Stone, Mr. Robbie E., Mr. Robert Strauss, who I hosted a podcast with for about a year and a half, and until he got signed. And it was called Why It Ended, and we had a really good time. And I came to know and respect and like this person very much. And every time there's like a round of firings in NXT, I look through and just make sure Robbie's not on it. And he's never is, because Robbie is a grinder. He's a hustler. He's a hard worker. He knows how to be successful. And it's funny, he's been this peripheral character on NXT TV, but I think there's going to be bigger things for him in WWE in the future on screen because he's very good. And this thing worked out really good. But I also like him. Like he's a great guy. So trust my word, don't trust my word. We have Carmelo Hayes against Dijak and Baron Corbin. As soon as I saw it was a three-way, I said to myself, Carmelo Hayes is gonna steal the win, and he sure did. It was a pretty good match. Again, Corbin I think is miscast. Dijak is a guy who's been there forever. How can you not figure out what to do with him? Like, there's a million things you could do with him, but they seem to be doing everything but the good things that'll be successful with him. On paper, he looks great. His matches are really good. His promos are good. His look is great. There's no reason why he shouldn't be on the main roster, except that they have nothing for him. There's room for him on the main roster. Baron Corbin, again, I'd like to see him as a good guy. I think he's been miscast a million times in WWE, and Carmelo Hayes seems to have a big future to him. But I think Trick Williams, who is not in this match, he really impressed me as well. And so the match ends, and of course Carmelo Hayes does steal the win, and he becomes the number one contender. So he goes to face Ilya Dragunov in a title match in the main event of Halloween Havoc. I do like Ilya. Lyra Valkyrie is seen watch as the show ends, right? They go to the backstage. Lyra Valkyrie is watching the match from a monitor in the locker room and takes down a picture of her and Becky Lynch and says, "I'll see you there," and tears it in half and vows to win the women's title. And then Jade Cargill appears on the screen and points to her wristwatch, meaning her time's coming soon and the show closed. They definitely made an effort to make a television show. So again, well, not again, but now, what did I think? I gave NXT a chance. Will I watch it again? Did I enjoy it? No and no. It's WWE Lite. There's nothing particularly interesting or different about it, and it's confusing. Like, why is Becky Lynch there and Dom there, and what are they like? So then you're forced to think, okay, I'm talking to myself now. If they're there, then it's just a third brand, and it's a weaker third brand, and it features kind of this hodgepodge of brand new talent that they put in these big tournaments to see if anything sticks. Established talent that has been sent down that are probably not going back up, maybe. And then these guys who, a handful, just a small handful of guys who are going to be in the future in WWE. And, I'd say, I know everybody likes Braun Breaker. I didn't see Braun Breaker wrestle, but I did see Julius Creed. And I think, Julius Creed's a great example, right? Because I've seen the videos of him. I've seen a couple of his matches. He is very impressive. Like, he reminds me of Sean O'Hare in a lot of ways. A lot of the good ways, a lot of the can't miss ways. But what do you do with the guy? Do you just throw him up like John Cena in trunks and say, okay, well, he's going to be the guy? Because that's almost the only thing you can do with him. Otherwise, you're going to make a gimmick out of him. Like, anyway, so it's like a weaker third brand. It is like WWE Lite. It's too campy for me. People talk about AEW being campy, like the Adam Cole segments. There was literally a whole show of those Adam Cole segments. Like, it's not for me. I'm not saying I like wrestling more serious. I'm saying I like interesting, different, unique things. AEW is definitely different from WWE. I like it. I like it for the most part. WWE is WWE. I like it for the most part. But NXT has now gone from being a third option to just option AAA. AAA of WWE. It's not for me. I gave it a chance. It's got an open mind. I will try it again, maybe in a couple months. But for now, I ain't got the time. And if you're looking for something to watch, maybe not NXT right now. That's my recommendation. This has been Matt Watch. I want to thank you guys. Hey, look what I got. I got a graphic there. Look, I did it myself. It says Matt Watch. Let me do this right. MattWatch.com. And then over here, subscribe, like, comment. Oh, look, I got the format wrong. You can't see the E right there. But subscribe, like, comment, set your notifications, all those things you do on YouTube. I'm going to grow this channel only because of you guys. So please keep watching. Tell your friends. Let me know what you want to see me watch, because it doesn't just have to be wrestling. And I will see you next time on MattWatch.com with me, Matt Coon. Awkward ending of show.